Hi, welcome to our home bar and welcome to our channel, Wise Whiskey. I'm Tony and today we're going to do Whiskey Tasting 101. So if you'd like to follow along at home, I'm going to set up 3 whiskeys and I would suggest that you try to find 3 whiskeys in same categories as these. And what we're going to do is focus on 2 things in this video. The first is how to properly set up a flight and how to go through progressive tasting. The second is going to be how to taste an individual sample and what we're focused on. So if you would like to pause and set this up with me, the 3 categories are, we want to start with something 80 proof that's relatively single note and not overly complex. I recommend a Canadian blended whiskey. I'm using 40 Creek, but you can use Crown Royal, you can use Canadian Club, R&R Reserve. There's a million of them out there. We don't want to do the aged ones or the higher proof ones. We don't want to do something that is flavored. We just want the entry level Canadian blended whiskey. The second one needs to be in the 90 to 100 proof range and preferably a bourbon or rye. This is going to let you see the flavor contrast between the styles, but also a step up in alcohol level. Today, I'm going to be doing Penelope Toasted Straight Bourbon Whiskey, and this is going to be 100 proof. And then lastly, we want to do something that's cask strength, higher proof, barrel proof, full strength. We'll do a video in the future about how to read whiskey labels, but we want to do something with a higher profile of alcohol level and a little bit more intricate and complex flavor profile. So today, I'm going to do the Old Overholt 11-year cask strength rye whiskey. This one is 107.4 proof and 11 years old. It's going to be significantly older and higher proof than the first 2 pours. I would say that if you're new to whiskey tasting and you want to go through this with me, when we do a cask strength, try to stay under 120 proof. Once you get into those 120 plus, 130, or what they call a hazmat, which is 140 proof and above, those can be extremely intense. And if you don't have a profile or palate that's built up to that and used to it, you're not going to get anything from it at all. So if you want to do this flight with me, go ahead and pause here, get set up with those categories. We're going to go ahead and start with our first pour. Again, that's the 40 Creek Canadian Blended. This is 80 proof and a non-age statement, which means it's 2 years or older, probably not much older. There may be some older whiskey blended in, but whenever you talk about age, the lowest on the bottle is what's recommended. And then when you have non-age stated whiskeys, all of the North American whiskeys to be called whiskey have to be at least 2 years old. So when we do our nose, we want to start with what we call the Bloodhound method. It's going to be short smells all around the glass. We want to keep our mouth slightly open so that we're getting retronasal as well. Scientists haven't agreed, but somewhere between 80 to 95% of what we perceive as flavor or taste actually comes from our olfactory or our sense of smell and not from our taste buds. So letting our full olfactory senses work is really going to improve what we can smell and later what we can taste. I'm going to start out further away from the glass and work in. For me, I've been doing this quite a bit so I can get my nose right in there. But if you're new to smelling and tasting, you're going to have to build up a tolerance and used to that alcohol. Putting your nose directly in right away, you might as well be chloroforming yourself. You're just going to burn all the nose hairs out and you're not going to smell anything. So we're going to do small, repeated sniffs. I'm going to move around the glass and smell different parts of the whiskey, and I'm going to keep my mouth slightly open. So this smells like butterscotch. A little bit of funk, but mostly butterscotch. Maybe a touch of ethanol or alcohol burn. Not a lot. I don't get anything else. I'm not getting brown sugar or vanilla. I'm not getting spice. I'm not getting fruit. I'm really just getting some butterscotch and a touch of like burny funk. And I know that those are extremely scientific and fancy sounding terms, but Bernie Funk was actually the name of a band I was in high school. We did all funk songs, but we all dressed like Bernie Sanders. Even though I'm old enough that when I was in high school, Bernie Sanders was not a name we knew. Okay, so I'm going to taste. We're going to pretend this is the first taste of alcohol I've had today. And so because of that, my palate is not ready yet. So my first sip is going to be very quick, like hot coffee. I'm just going to sip it to get it on my palate. I'm not going to think about what I'm trying. That sip is just to acclimate to alcohol, to the burn, to the ethanol, to get your palate ready to try to do more. Now, I always have a palate cleanser with me when I'm doing tasting. My first video, I did Guinness. Today is a football Sunday. Got the Patriots and Texans playoff game coming up. Whoop, whoop, go Patriots. And I am expecting this to be a long day and some other drinks to be involved. So I'm using Guinness non-alcohol as my palate cleanser today. As I spoke about in the first video, Guinness is nitrogenated. It's a softer carbonation, so it really helps cleanse the palate. The flavor profiles do not overlap with the whiskey, so I don't think it's going to get in the way of anything. And it's just a nice, soft, easy drink in between. So I've had a sip like hot coffee just to get my palate ready. I have had my palate cleanser. So now we're going to go in and we're going to really get into our notes. Again, on the nose, butterscotch, a little bit of funk, not a lot else. When I do my tasting, I like to think of it as what's happening on my palate as I try it, not just try to pick out flavors. At the very tip of my tongue, the front of my palate, typically that's where alcohol, spice, some of your more intense flavors hit. I get nothing on this. It's really just not a lot up front. That butterscotch hits what I would say is mid palate, although that sounds pretentious, really just on your tongue, like the bulk of your tongue. I get that note of butterscotch. It kind of goes across. It does turn just slightly funky and slightly sharp or burny, which is that ethanol. Doesn't really coat the palate. It's not something that sticks around. It's not thick. It's not viscous. There's nothing in the finish. It doesn't evolve or change into other flavors. It doesn't really hang with you. It just kind of evaporates off and goes away. And you're not really left with anything else. You just get a little bit of that butterscotch, a little bit of that funk and burn, and then it's gone. I did leave just a little bit in this because if you are new to whiskey tasting, I'm telling you that there was nothing up front and it wasn't sharp and it was relatively mild. But if you're new to whiskey, you may say the exact opposite. You might be saying that was really hot. All I got was alcohol burn up front. That's okay. We have to acclimate our palates and we have to learn. So leave a little bit of the Canadian. And when we do our other two whiskeys, we're going to come back to that one. So I'm going to do a little bit of my palate cleanser and go to my next pour. Same thing for nosing. We're going to do our Bloodhound method. Now this one, I'm getting oak. I'm getting brown sugar. Maybe in a little bit of baking spice. So you think kind of like pumpkin spice. I mean, baking spice and pumpkin spice is basically the same thing. Bourbon tasters love to say baking spice because it sounds less like I'm a basic girl that goes to the coffee shop. But it's all the same stuff. It's your allspice, your nutmeg, your cinnamon. Maybe just a touch of sweetness other than brown sugar. I'm having a hard time putting a nose on it, but there's something else a little sweet there, maybe slightly creamy. So now we're going to go for a sip. So on the front of my tongue this time, I do get just a little tingle, a little bit of burn, a little bit of proof because this is 100 proof, so it's a significant step up, but also just a little bit of spice. From the rye and the bourbon, from the barrel. And then you get a sweetness that is, let's see here. The kind of oaky brown sugar sweetness hits your tongue and goes right away. This is a toasted barrel finish. And a lot of times with your toasted barrel and your double oak, I get like a marshmallow note. And there is kind of this creamy sweetness that almost goes to the roof of your mouth while you get the oaky kind of typical brown sugar sweetness along your tongue. So it is nice because you're getting extra sweetness and this extra flavor, but you're almost experiencing them in two different parts of your mouth at the same time. On the finish, this doesn't really evolve. It doesn't take you anywhere crazy. I'm not really getting that Kentucky hug yet, that warmth that creeps down into your chest when you've had some of the more substantial and higher proof whiskeys. There is a touch of rye spice or proof that hangs out almost down there, but it goes away pretty quickly. So this does feel like a more complex and intricate whiskey than the first pour, but this is not a hit you in the face, super intense whiskey that you got to chew on. It is a lovely pour, really nice, sweet, just enough oak and age there to kind of balance it out. And I do like that you almost have the two different sweetnesses coming at the same time. Makes it a little more interesting. Okay, so we're going to do our palate cleanser one more time. So last we're going to do our Old Overholt Cask Strength 11 year. We had a chance a while back to go to a bar in Houston called Reserve 101. It's a fantastic whiskey bar. And we tried the Old Overholt 10 year, and it was one of the best whiskeys my wife and I had ever tried. We weren't able to snag a bottle of that when we started looking, but we were able to get a bottle of the 11 year. It's not quite as good as the 10, but it is a fantastic bottle. Also, while I'm giving shout outs, I sent my first video to a bunch of friends of mine from the industry. I was a beer and liquor rep for quite a while, if you haven't watched the first video, as well as just friends and family. And one of the folks that watched it and liked it and reached back out to me and said he would keep watching is Raju. He owns the Oak Liquor Cabinet down in Austin. Honestly, if you're in the Central Texas area, it's hard to beat the Oak Liquor Cabinet for the whiskey selection that they have. He has incredible selections of year-round and limited release whiskeys. He's extremely fair and reasonable with his allocated bottles as well. Also, what makes Raju really unique is he has built incredible relationships with his supplier reps. And so he does some amazing tasting events there. I got to taste like 2 different Octomores and some incredible Bruichladdich bottles at an event. He's had quite a few celebrities, including I think like Jason Momoa was there one time. Bruzel, which is one of the big YouTube whiskey channels, has filmed there before as well. So if you're in the Austin area, I highly recommend checking out Oak Liquor Cabinet. Raju, I hope you're watching this one as well. I miss you, buddy. You're one of my favorite customers. I think I'm allowed to say that now. And yeah, so anyway, let's get to our last pour here, the Old Overholt 11 year. So on the nose, you definitely get age. You get some oak, you get some bitterness, some tobacco and leather. There is that kind of brown sugar sweetness. With a lot of rye whiskeys, you're going to get a intense dill or mint note, and that's not here. This is not a super rye forward rye, even though it is cask strength. And then when you go to the palate, there's a tingle on the tongue from the proof, but it's subdued and it takes a while to build. So the proof, for being a cask strength whiskey, the proof does not hit you or punch you. It's subtle. This is the first whiskey we have that really coats your entire palate. You can see the legs dripping down the side. This is a more viscous whiskey. That sweetness of brown sugar, a little bit of nuttiness like peanut, which this is a bean product, so that's not entirely surprising. Mid-palate, that's what gets you. It almost tastes like a bourbon. However, this whiskey has the most evolution and the most finish to it of anything we've tried today. There's a cooling menthol sensation that comes in after you've had the tingle on your tongue. You've had that brown sugar, kind of peanut brittle, nutty sweetness. This minty kind of cool finish comes across. And then very slowly that proof, that barrel spice and that proof heat start to creep down and give you a little bit of that Kentucky hug down here. This really is a fantastic pour. Now, this is like a $95 bottle, okay? This is not a cheap bottle by any means. But if you want a different, unique, complex cask strength rye whiskey in particular, I used to see this bottle on the shelf all the time, even though it was a 1-year release. At some point in the last year, they may have even released a 12-year. I haven't been in liquor stores like I used to be because I don't work in them now. But man, the Overholt 11 is a crazy bottle. It's a really good sip. And it is just such a step up from the first two. This is a wonderful way of only trying 3 whiskeys, but really getting to dive in and experiencing some different proof levels, some different flavor profiles, and some different levels of complexity. So finally, if you are new to whiskey or if you've just never done this kind of tasting before, we're going to go back to our 80 proof Canadian blended after we just had this cask strength. Now, if you are new to tasting, remember that Canadian probably came across as sharp and a little hot. The proof was there for you because you're new to tasting whiskey and your palate hasn't grown used to it yet. Now that you've had 100 proof and something higher, let's see how that Canadian blended tastes now. On the nose, it's exactly the same. But now on the palate, it's almost like flat soda. None of the tingle, none of the sharpness is there anymore. Even the butterscotch is a little more subdued. That little bit of funk is still there. It just genuinely tastes less intense than the first time you tried it because of the fact that we've done this step up in proof and complexity with our other whiskeys. Even if you did this tasting and all three whiskeys tasted really intense up front, now that you've gone back and tried this again, I hope that you would have seen some difference in the levels and you would have picked out some new flavor notes, and that now that you've gone back, this tastes more palatable or accessible. This has been Whiskey Tasting 101. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, in the comments, leave some comments for other subject matters or other topics you'd like us to cover. Would love to make some more videos based off your comments. If you want to support the channel, like and subscribe. And until next time, please drink responsibly, drink respectfully, and most of all, I hope you have fun with it. Thank you for watching Wise Whiskey. Have a great day.